Okay, I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. My name's James. I want to begin a podcast here pretty soon. Just kind of doing a little couple of test runs. I'm trying to test equipment, stuff like that. But basically, the theme of the podcast would just be Everyday People's Podcast, and I would talk to pretty much just people, anybody who's I don't know. I have a lot of conversations with people, whether I'm going to work or whether I'm taking a walk somewhere or I'm in the supermarket. Sometimes I strike up a conversation in the supermarket, not too often, but sometimes when you do, you find that there's some pretty interesting stories out there. And a lot of times people don't have the opportunity to present themselves or to express themselves in ways that would share their experience, like would explain their experiences. Sometimes we just get caught up in the daily grind, and I don't know. I think that a lot of people, I'm sure you probably do too, and people that you know, have a lot of interesting stories to tell. Sometimes, sometimes they may be a little bit more mundane, or they might not tell the story so eloquently or gripping fashion, but a lot of times people do. And in my work, I've sometimes you have to wait on something to happen, and you just kind of make small talk, and you find yourself in a kind of a just a rabbit hole of conversation where you find a lot out about people too. Um, I guess people say that maybe I find out a little bit more about myself too, but I don't really worry about that. I actually like hearing what someone else has to say and where they're coming from and the kinds of experience that they've built up in their lives. It adds a lot. It adds a lot to what I go through, and it adds a lot to it just adds a little bit more color to the picture that we're painting in our lives. So um, that's basically the theme. There's going to be a lot of different. My idea is to have a co-host, and hopefully she wants to start up pretty soon too. She's fantastic, and then from there we could interview people, and it could be today we're interviewing a doctor, or tomorrow we're interviewing a teacher, or a garbage man, or a lawyer, or whatever the profession. It doesn't even have to be based on profession. It could just be a person that, hey, I had this interesting story. They don't even tell me what they do. I mean, to be honest, as long as it's something that brings a little, again, just brings a little bit of a different perspective to what we're doing. So my co-host has some pretty strong ideas as far as what she wants to bring out in the conversation, and I think it's pretty admirable. My thing is just to kind of give the stage to somebody for a little bit and let them shine. So it could be a number of topics. We've tossed around ideas. I'm looking at philosophy and whatever higher learning, and it could be spirituality. It could be just uh, problems people have with society. It could be anything. It really could be. I kind of want to see where it takes us too. So with me, I know I talk a lot about fitness and a lot about. I don't know. I collect baseball cards. I could go on all day about baseball cards. I could go on all day about watching WWF wrestling and stuff like the older days, not the stuff now. So I mean, stuff like that would interest me, but I don't think it would interest most people. So it's good to have variety. It's good to have a plethora of topics that we can kind of dive into. The first thing would be, again, just making sure this equipment's good and ready to go, and then I don't know. I think we can start with kind of a mock interview of each other if that's where we start on. Hopefully that goes well. I think I have another guy who wants to be like the Google guy, looking up all the facts. He's big on the news and current events and making sure people get the story right. So I think it sounds great. I why not? Let's have some fun with it. With me, I don't know. I'm probably I'm not as focused on the worldly stuff, but it's relevant. So it's good to have somebody who is. I guess I could start. I could just kind of talk briefly about what I do. I've been working with a transportation company. Well, it's actually a staffing company that sells a software app, and then they kind of went into transportation. They offered transportation as a service for the new hire employees to the factory. So I was in charge of the transportation division that was shut down, unfortunately. We had a lot of fun though, and it was it was a success in a lot of ways. Just the funding, we could never really keep up with the turnover and that kind of thing. So kind of ran away from us. But I think it's a really good idea. I think it's pretty cutting edge, offering transportation to people to their for people to go to work, especially in these factories where they're kind of remote. So anyway, I've been doing that. That's kind of where I got the idea of Everyday People's podcast as opposed to something else. I think I had talked before about doing a podcast, and it was kind of more on worldly affairs and matters of spirituality, but kind of exclusive to that. When I started working in this job and I'm driving people, it kind of felt like taxi cab confessions where I'm driving around and somebody's telling me stuff that a lot of it was kind of shocking, I guess, but most of it was more interesting. Just you just don't expect people to open up sometimes certain things, and it's not that private, but it's just stuff that nobody ever really goes into, and you start to find out a little bit more of the nuance that each person has, and that each person's experience is very unique. So that's kind of the part that I like is each person's experience has it's not something I can pick up a book and read about. It's not something I can turn on a TV and flip on a news channel and say, oh, this person's probably going to be just like this because I've seen it doesn't work that way. I've talked to so many different people and they're all over the place. It's great. So one of the things that I'd like to kind of hone in on with talking to a person is just allow them to feel at ease with whatever they want to say. They don't have to say anything. They don't have to say everything they don't want to go into. It's not that I'm trying to pry, but a lot of times people want to talk about things. Uh, living day to day can be pretty stressful, and I know a lot of people get caught up in that, and it's, well, I can't do this. I have to do it this way. So I know myself. I'm dealing with. It's been a very stressful year in a lot of ways. Well, good. Some stress is really good, but uh, it's just a lot to handle. So it's good to have a connection with somebody. Trying to think, what was I gonna do? Um, I don't know if there's anything I want to talk about right now. I would say with I didn't really plan anything to talk about. I know college football's starting up. I really care less, and I think pro football starts tomorrow. And I kind of told my wife I'm not going to watch this year because last year I was kind of a maniac. My team was supposed to win the whole thing, and then they blew it like they usually do. So I kind of lost my mind and thought, all right, I gotta take a step back from this and just kind of take a year off because it's not really giving me anything. So, but again, I love sports and I could talk sports history and I could talk, you know, even current, just sports in general. I like, but it's kind of nice right now. It's college football Saturday and I haven't checked the score or anything. I haven't even thought about it. I'm actually kind of glad that I'm stressing out over the stuff I'm stressing out over, but I, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But just yeah, it could be sports, it could be anything like that. But for me, yeah, this year it's been a lot about um, kind of finding a career path. It's my career has always been all over the place, and I was teaching for a while, and then you know I always kind of study something while I'm working too. So I don't know if that's a good thing or if that's kind of distracting me from what I'm supposed to be doing. But uh, whether I'm studying languages or hold on a second, this right now I'm studying tech stuff because I have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to putting this podcast together. But I think I found some headway on this microphone setup today. Maybe be able to add a couple of microphones to the laptop and do it that way because it sounds a lot better than what I had been doing before when I posted videos. So I'm excited to see that part of it. But and this is part of it too. Like I could go on a topic right now, but the reason I introduced the idea to a co-host is because I don't find myself interesting enough for more than 10 minutes, even sometimes not even 10 minutes. I'd rather not, but if I have somebody to kind of bounce ideas off of or to kind of to give me some feedback or to introduce topics to me and lead the way for me a lot of the time, I find it to be a lot better. I mean, I can go into different topics, but if I'm going in solo, it's like, what am I what am I doing? I could just be laying back and eating food, and you know, who knows whatever else I'd be doing. But right now, I think this is a cool thing. I think we can really put some. I think I've just rambled right now, but that's what the edits buttons are for. But yeah, so a lot of my interest would be in culture, foreign cultures, traveling, fitness, languages, studying languages. I like stuff like that. Um, you know, just philosophy. I'm really into philosophy and just kind of finding uh, maybe a different way of living than what we're used to. Because I look around, a lot of people are, I guess they're content, but it feels like just always feels like there's something missing with people in the way they go through their daily lives. But I don't know. Maybe it just takes time to thing for things to come to fruition, and it's supposed to be that way. I've thought about that too. It's like, well, yeah, it's people we're supposed to not really be happy the whole time, that kind of thing, until you've kind of built that legacy for yourself, and then by the end of your life, you have that, if that makes any sense. But um, I just think it's something that we can kind of tap into. There's a lot of problems in the world today, and there's a lot of problems that's a reflection of us collectively, but we don't reach that unless we're feeding into it individually. So I kind of look at it that way too, where it's like, all right, there's so many problems in the world today. Are they my fault? I guess they kind of are. I mean, I guess I'm responsible for the life that I live. So if everything around me is messed up, then is it is it imperative that I maybe not that I fix it, but surely I must have played some kind of part in the way things are, So I look at it that way too, and it's like, so in order to fix the problem, if I am going to fix the problem, it's not imperative for me to just go in and take the entire problem and change it. I don't even think we have the ability to do that as individuals. But the part that's difficult is, for me, it's always been patience. I want things to happen right away, and it's a hard lesson to learn. And I continue to learn that it doesn't happen right away, but it will never happen if I don't start with my own foundation. And I can address things that happen in my life, or the way that I react to things that happen around me. And I guess that's probably the best thing I can do, is just work on the way that I react as a person. And then if the people around me, as I don't know whether it's by osmosis or just by, kind of having a dialogue, or, looking and kind of understanding, feeding off of that, just because you see it and you see another person doing things a certain way, and you kind of think, okay, I'm going to kind of emulate that, or maybe tweak it a little bit, but I think that person's on the right path there. If I see somebody doing it that way, and then I kind of try that, and then somebody else sees me doing that, and they think that I'm doing something that's maybe something that could help themselves, then maybe we could kind of build from there, a society that would be a little bit more conducive to solving problems simply by adjusting the way that we react to them. And a lot of those problems would either cease to exist, or definitely lessen in their gravity that they would have on us as a culture. Because I see a lot of the problems that people have, or that we make problems, or that we see as problems, and I'm thinking, that's a problem? Like, that's not even a serious issue. Why is that such a big deal? But we turn it into a big deal, and then we turn it into something that actually does become a big deal, because we take that so seriously, and then we balloon something into something else that really does have grave consequence. So, a lot of that stuff, it's like, if we can just hit it, um, when it's in its, fledgling stages, a lot of that stuff wouldn't even blossom. And I don't want to say blossom, that sounds kind of nice, but it wouldn't even mushroom into the problem it becomes. So I know it might sound a little abstract, but I just see a lot of the worldly problems we have now, and there are issues that could have been handled just by each person taking a little bit of a stronger look at themselves. I remember when the war stuff with Russia and Ukraine happened, and everybody was, rightfully so, very, very worried, and I think people still are very worried. But my reaction was just like, yeah, we're pretty, we're pretty destructive creatures sometimes, human beings. And I think the general reaction was to deflect that onto, world leaders or, uh, you know, certain political heads. That kind of, I mean, just people that have power that we see as having power, and on a large scale. And I just think that's the easy way out. I think that doesn't help me. I mean, I know that I'm not stupid. I mean, like, we're not stupid. We know that people with power create problems, or at least exacerbate them. But so, okay, so what do we do about it? I mean, we create problems too, right? I create problems, unfortunately. And what do I do when I create a problem? Do I just point my finger at somebody else who's creating a bigger problem and say, well, at least I'm not that guy? I don't think that's the way to go about living. So I I think the best thing I can do is to continue to just kind of look at, I don't want to say look at myself, but at least look at the circumstances that I can control and make sure that I'm doing the best with those. Um, and maybe not concern myself. I don't want to say I don't care, because I do, but I'm not going to get wrapped up in what the leader of some warring country wants to do. Uh, it's a hard thing to accept, because you want terrible things to stop, and when they're happening so quickly and so widespread, it's almost like you want to hit a panic button and just, but but what's that going to do? I mean, it's kind of too late for that. It's already happening. So again, I guess we're lucky that we still have the ability to get up and say, okay, what can I do today to make my lot better? And it's hard because, going back to the people that I talk to, a lot of times you hear these situations and you're like, man, it's going to be really hard to get out of that. Or, yeah, that's a tough one. I don't know how I would deal with that, because I've never faced it. What's amazing is the people who go through it a lot of times do know how to deal with it, uh, with a certain situation, whether it's, being, let go of a job, or, let off of a job here in Ohio, versus, hey, I got to go to war in Kiev or something like that. I mean, it's people are in the situation, they know how to deal with it. I kind of relate it to, I remember climbing a mountain one time with a roommate of mine, and he was far more daring than I was, but I was kind of going along, and all of a sudden it's like, I didn't even realize it, but I'm hugging my body pretty close to the edge, and making sure my hands are close enough to the ground just in case. I mean, just wasn't even thinking about it. And then I get to the top of the mountain, and I'm looking around like, oh my gosh. I mean, it's silent. And all this, you just see the sun was setting, which was kind of scary because we had to go back in the dark. But um, luckily we had our head flashlights or whatever. But I think it was like not until I got back to our tent that I was thinking, oh my gosh, if you'd have told me that I would have had to do those things ahead of time, I wouldn't have done it. There's no way I would have done it. It's like if you'd have told me, hey, you got to go to war, I'm not going to do it. Or if you tell me, hey, you're going to lose your job and you're going to be in this situation, I'd panic. But when you're in it, you just kind of deal with it. And I guess that's another thing we'll get into eventually. I'm kind of going off on tangents, but like the idea that thought can really put us in a negative space. We start to look at the things that we can't do. We start to find these reservations and limitations when we're in thought. And I'm a huge thinker. I think all the time, and I used to think that was a good thing, or I used to believe that was a good thing, and now I'm questioning. I'm not just now, but I've had reason to question that. And when you think about things happening, you think. I guess sometimes you think of the good things, and that's why you go to thought. But that's almost like pining, and it's like, is there a point in doing that? Is that really helping you, or is it just kind of feeding feeding a feel-good button for a second. The negative part is right after that, when you can't feel the joy all the time or the pleasure all the time, and you start, the fear creeps in. And then it's, well, what if it doesn't happen? What if it goes the other way? What if this happens? And then, you know, I couldn't do that. I could never do. You start thinking those things, and I don't know. Something I've thought. Maybe it's just time. This year has been more action oriented. People ask me if I can do something. I'm like, okay. I don't even want to think about it enough to say no. I mean, that's how bad it is sometimes. I don't know if that's bad, but it's just that's how sudden things happen. And yeah, I think it's helped. It's helped me to just kind of look at things and go, okay, let's just act on it. Let's just do it. So then again, we'll get into another topic we could get into too with the thinking is like astrology. People say I think too much because of my astrological makeup, which is probably, I guess, is probably true. I don't know. I've studied that stuff a little bit. I think it's interesting. I don't know if it has any actual determining like bearing on a person's processes, but maybe it does. I've got no reason to doubt it, I guess. So something I could get into with the guest I have, maybe with the co-host I have. She's very also very into these kind of these um, metaphysical ways, these occult ways, maybe these just a little bit more intangible aspects of the human psyche too. So again, I guess I've gone on for a little while now, so I guess I'll probably just go ahead and cut off here. But I wanted to see how this works, see how I can maybe touch on a topic for a second. I think I was just kind of vague and going over things, but at least I got some ideas rolling. Get an idea of what we're going to be doing here. And another thing, I love comedy. So we might have people on who are just funny. I mean, I that's what I want. I have friends who just make me laugh. Family members who just make me laugh. I want to bring people on that are going to be fun, and it doesn't have to be a comedy hour all the time. I hope not. I don't want it to be, um, but sometimes the funniest people I've ever met are people who you've never heard of. So uh, we're going to be all over the place, and I hope you guys enjoy the ride, and feel free to be a part of it. And this is for us. This is for you. This is for all of us. We're all doing this together and on this journey. Um, Seeing where it takes all of us. So thank you, and I hope you tune in, and we look forward to bringing the best and bringing the uh, just bringing a good experience for everybody. All right, thank you.